Welcome to Noctyde. Tonight I'm going to tell you 5 stories that take place in abandoned classrooms. Places that are supposed to be empty, but never truly are. Schools closed for years. Silent hallways. Chalkboards still marked, as if the lesson never really ended. These are stories told as true. Accounts from people who stepped into places they probably shouldn't have. So get comfortable, turn off the lights, and listen carefully, because some classrooms never forget the ones who enter them. I didn't realize the moment I saw my name written down was the moment I stopped being alone in that school. By the time I ran, the building already knew I was there. I was 16 when this happened, old enough to think I was fearless and stupid enough to prove it. The middle school on the edge of town had been abandoned for almost 10 years after a fire damaged one wing and funding disappeared. Everyone called it Holloway. It sat behind rusted fencing and trees that had grown too close, their branches pressing against the windows like fingers. I went alone on a Saturday afternoon with my phone and a flashlight, planning to take photos for my friends. The front doors were chained, but a side entrance had a shattered window I slipped through. Inside, the air smelled like wet paper and old dust. Every sound echoed longer than it should have. The halls were exactly how you'd imagine. Lockers peeled open, faded posters curling off the walls, trophies covered in grime. My footsteps sounded too loud, so I started walking slower, listening. Somewhere deep in the building, something creaked rhythmically, like metal shifting with each breath of wind. I told myself it was nothing. I wandered into a classroom near the end of the hall. The door was still on its hinges, hanging crooked. Desks were stacked against the back wall, and the chalkboard was smeared with faint white ghosts of equations. Sunlight came through cracked blinds, cutting the dust into visible lines. On the teacher's desk sat a single folder. It didn't belong there. Everything else had been looted or destroyed years ago, but this was intact, beige, slightly warped, with the word attendance written across the top in neat blue ink. I picked it up. Inside was a class roster. Names printed neatly down the page, most of them crossed out in red pen. Dates filled the columns, stopping abruptly almost a decade earlier. I flipped through a few pages, expecting graffiti or jokes. That's when I saw the last page. At the bottom of the list, beneath all the crossed-out names, was one entry written in fresh blue ink. My full name, first and last. Next to it, in the date column, was that day's date. The pen marks were dark, clean, and pressed hard into the paper like they'd been written minutes ago. I laughed out loud, but it came out wrong, thin and shaky. I told myself someone was messing with me, maybe another explorer, maybe a prank. But my phone had no service, and I hadn't seen or heard anyone else since I came in. I set the folder back down and stepped away from the desk. That's when I heard a chair scrape behind me. I spun around. Nothing had moved. The desks were still stacked, the room empty, but the air felt different, colder, heavier. I suddenly had the uncomfortable sense of being observed, not from one direction, but from everywhere at once. I backed into the hallway and told myself to leave. That was the plan. In and out, no more exploring. As I walked back down the hall, I noticed something that hadn't been there before. One of the classroom doors on the opposite side was open. I was sure it had been closed when I passed it earlier. I remembered because the handle was missing, leaving a hole in the metal. Against my better judgment, I looked inside. It was another classroom, almost identical to the first, except the desks were arranged neatly in rows, all facing forward. The chalkboard was clean, and written across it in careful handwriting were the words, "Please take your seat." I stepped back so fast I nearly fell. Behind me, the hallway lights flickered once. They shouldn't have flickered at all. The building didn't have power. That's when I heard it. Soft, deliberate footsteps coming from the far end of the hall. Not running, not dragging, just walking, unhurried, as if whoever it was knew exactly where I was standing. I called out, asking if anyone was there,
My voice echoed and died. The footsteps didn't stop. They got closer. I ran. I didn't care about photos anymore. I didn't care about looking stupid. I bolted toward the side exit, my shoes slipping on broken tiles. As I passed the first classroom again, I glanced inside without meaning to. The attendance folder was gone. The teacher's desk was empty. I reached the broken window and started climbing through when I heard a sound that made my stomach drop. Paper rustling. I turned my head. Down the hallway, a figure stood near the classroom I'd started in. I couldn't make out a face, just the shape of someone holding a clipboard, head tilted down as if reading. Then I heard a pen scratch. Once. Twice. The figure looked up. I didn't wait to see more. I scrambled out, cutting my arm on the glass, and didn't stop running until halfway home. I never told my friends what happened. They wouldn't have believed me. A week later, my mom found a folded piece of paper tucked into my backpack. We both assumed it was homework I forgot. It was an attendance sheet. Only one name was on it. Mine. Marked present and dated for the following Monday. The day I skipped school because, for the first time in my life, I was too afraid to leave my house.
The bell rang once, clean, sharp, and deliberate, like it was calling someone who hadn't shown up yet. None of us spoke, because we all knew the same impossible truth. I was 21 when this happened, tagging along with two friends who were obsessed with urban exploration. The school was called Ridgeway High, shut down almost 15 years earlier after the district consolidated campuses. They stripped it for parts before sealing it up: wiring, copper, even the old PA system. The bell system was one of the first things removed. That mattered later. We went in just before midnight, slipping through a gap in the chain-link fence behind the gym. The building sat on a hill overlooking town, dark and massive, its windows reflecting nothing but the sky. Inside, the air was stale and cold, carrying the faint smell of mold and metal. Our flashlights cut narrow tunnels through the darkness. At first, it felt like any other abandoned place. Lockers lined the halls, some hanging open, others dented in. Old banners drooped from the ceiling, their school colors faded to gray. Our footsteps echoed too loudly, so we started whispering without realizing it. We checked the cafeteria, then the library. Everything was dead silent, except for the hum of the wind slipping through broken windows. My friend Ethan kept filming on a handheld camera, narrating quietly like he was already imagining the upload. Around 12 a.m., we made our way toward the classroom wing on the second floor. The stairwell was pitch black, and the metal railing was icy to the touch. Halfway up, I got that familiar crawling sensation between my shoulder blades, the feeling of being watched. I shook it off and kept moving. At the top of the stairs, we paused. The hallway stretched out ahead of us, long and straight, classroom doors lining both sides. Above us, old fluorescent fixtures hung like dead insects. My phone buzzed softly in my pocket. 12:03 a.m. That's when the bell rang. It wasn't distorted or broken. It wasn't a clatter or a mechanical glitch. It was a full, clear school bell, one long ring that vibrated through the hall, bouncing off the lockers and sinking into my chest. We froze. Ethan lowered his camera. Did you hear that? No one answered, because we were all staring down the hallway toward the main office where the bell control room used to be. The silence afterward felt heavier than the sound itself. We knew the building had no power. We'd confirmed it online. The bell system had been physically removed, panels, wiring, everything. There was no logical explanation. Maybe it's outside, Lucas said, but his voice didn't convince even himself. The bell rang again. This time it came closer. Not louder, closer. It echoed as if it had been rung from inside the hallway itself, vibrating the lockers beside us. I felt it through the soles of my shoes. Ethan whispered, "That's not possible." Something shifted at the far end of the hall. At first, I thought it was a shadow from one of our flashlights, but then it moved independently, slowly sliding across the floor and up the wall, like something tall passing from a distant light source. We backed toward the stairwell without speaking. That's when the classroom doors started to open. Not all at once,
One by one, hinges creaking softly, doors swinging inward just a few inches like someone peeking out. Each opening was slow and deliberate, perfectly timed with the echo of our breathing. Then the bell rang a third time, shorter, sharper, closer than ever. The shadow at the end of the hall resolved into a shape, still indistinct but upright. It wasn't walking, it was gliding, covering distance without making a sound. Lucas bolted. The spell broke and we ran after him, slamming down the stairs, nearly tumbling over each other. The bell rang again as we reached the first floor, now muffled, like it was following us through the walls. We burst through the side exit into the night air, gasping, hearts pounding. The school loomed behind us, silent again, as if nothing had happened. We didn't stop running until we reached the car. None of us spoke on the drive home. Ethan never uploaded the footage. He told me later that when he reviewed the video, the audio cut out exactly at 12:03 a.m., replaced with a low, steady ringing that lasted the rest of the recording. I tried to forget about it. Life moved on. But a month later, I drove past Ridgeway High on my way home from work. For the first time since it closed, one of the lights in the second-floor hallway was on. And right on time, 12:03 a.m., the bell rang once more.
The sound was slow and deliberate, like someone taking their time correcting a mistake. The problem was, I was completely alone, and the chalkboard was behind me. I took the photos job because it was easy money and I didn't believe in ghost stories. An abandoned elementary school outside the city was scheduled for demolition, and a local historian wanted interior shots before it was gone. Nothing artistic, just documentation. I went alone on a weekday afternoon, figuring daylight would make it less unsettling. The school sat back from the road, half hidden by weeds and sagging fences. Windows were either boarded or shattered, and the front doors were chained shut. I entered through a broken side door, my camera bag slung over one shoulder, flashlight in hand. Inside, the air was stale and cold, carrying the faint smell of dust and old paper. My footsteps echoed down the hallways, too loud in the silence. Lockers lined the walls, their paint flaking, some doors hanging open like broken teeth. Children's drawings were still taped up in places, faded and warped by moisture. I moved room to room, taking wide shots, close-ups, details. Most classrooms were identical, rows of overturned desks, scattered books, chalkboards smeared with half-erased lessons. It was eerie, but manageable. I kept telling myself it was just a building. Near the back of the school, I found a classroom that looked untouched. The desks were still upright, neatly arranged. A teacher's chair sat behind the desk, slightly pulled out, as if someone had just stood up. The chalkboard was clean. No writing, no smears. That stood out more than anything else. I stepped inside and began setting up my camera. The room felt colder than the others, not dramatically, but enough to notice. My breath didn't fog, but my hands stiffened as I adjusted the lens. I took a few shots of the desks, then turned to photograph the chalkboard. Still blank. I checked my screen, adjusted the settings, and took another photo. That's when I heard it. A faint scraping sound. At first, I thought it was my shoe brushing the floor, but it continued, soft, rhythmic, unmistakable. Chalk against slate. Slow, intentional. I froze. The sound was coming behind me. I didn't turn around right away. I stood there, camera in my hands, heart starting to thud harder in my chest. My brain raced through explanations, old buildings settling, something dragging in the vents, my imagination filling in gaps. The scraping continued,
steady and patient. I turned. The chalkboard was no longer blank. Written across it in large, uneven letters was a sentence. "This isn't what you were supposed to see." Before I could process it, the sound started again. The letters began to smear. Not all at once, line by line, as if an invisible hand was erasing them carefully. Chalk dust fell to the tray at the bottom, puffing softly into the air. I couldn't move. My legs felt locked in place, like my body had decided this wasn't real and refused to respond. The message disappeared completely. The scraping stopped. The chalkboard was blank again. The room felt colder. I backed away slowly, my heel bumping into a desk. The sound echoed too loudly. I whispered a weak, "Hello?" even though every part of me screamed not to. No answer. I turned toward the door, and that's when the chalkboard changed again. New writing appeared, this time smaller, tighter, written faster, as if whoever was doing it was in a hurry. "Don't turn your back." I ran. I didn't stop to pack my gear. I didn't take another photo. I bolted into the hallway, my footsteps slapping against the tile, my breathing loud in my ears. The school felt different now, longer, darker. The halls seemed to stretch as I moved through them. Behind me, faint but clear, I heard the scraping sound again, following me. Not loud, not rushed, just persistent. I didn't look back. I reached the side door and shoved it open, stumbling into the daylight, lungs burning. I didn't stop until I was back in my car, doors locked, engine running. I sat there for a long time, hands shaking, staring at the school through the windshield. Nothing moved. I told myself I had imagined it. Stress, fatigue, an overactive mind in a creepy place. That night, I reviewed the photos on my computer, planning to delete most of them and forget the job ever happened. The last photo made my blood run cold. It was the second shot I'd taken of the chalkboard. In the image, faint but unmistakable, were the partially erased words, "We erased you too." I checked the metadata. The timestamp showed the photo was taken at a moment when I was standing in front of the board, when, in real life, it had been completely blank. I never went back for my camera bag. The school was demolished 2 weeks later. Sometimes, when I'm editing photos late at night, I hear a familiar scraping sound behind me, slow, careful, like someone fixing a mistake. And I make sure, no matter what, not to turn around. At first, I thought it was a shadow from one of our flashlights, but then it moved independently, slowly sliding across the floor and up the wall, like something tall passing behind a distant light source. We backed toward the stairwell without speaking. That's when the classroom doors started to open. Not all at once, one by one, hinges creaking softly, doors swinging inward just a few inches, like someone peeking out. Each opening was slow and deliberate, perfectly timed with the echo of our breathing. Then, the bell rang a third time. Shorter, sharper, closer than ever. The shadow at the end of the hall resolved into a shape, still indistinct but upright. It wasn't walking, it was gliding, covering distance without making a sound. Lucas bolted. The spell broke, and we ran after him, slamming down the stairs, nearly tumbling over each other. The bell rang again as we reached the first floor, now muffled like it was following us through the walls. We burst through the side exit into the night air, gasping, hearts pounding. The school loomed behind us, silent again, as if nothing had happened. We didn't stop running until we reached the car. None of us spoke on the drive home. Ethan never uploaded the footage. He told me later that when he reviewed the video, the audio cut out exactly at 12:03 a.m., replaced by a low, steady ringing that lasted the rest of the recording. I tried to forget about it. Life moved on. But a month later, I drove past Ridgeway High on my way home from work. For the first time since it closed, one of the lights in the second-floor hallway was on. And right on time, 12:03 a.m., the bell rang once more.
The room didn't feel hidden. It felt forgotten on purpose. I found the classroom by accident, even though later I realized it had been missing all along. The school was an old vocational high school slated for demolition, the kind of place urban explorers loved. Long hallways, broken windows, maps still pinned to corkboards. I went alone on a Sunday afternoon with a flashlight and a printed floor plan I'd found online, mostly to document anything unusual before the building was gone for good. At first, everything matched the map perfectly. Classrooms numbered in order, offices where they should be, stairwells exactly where the blueprint said they were. It gave me a strange sense of comfort, like the building was predictable, logical. Then, I noticed the gap. Between rooms 214 and 216, there was empty space on the blueprint, just blank paper, no label, no room number. On the actual hallway wall, though, there was a long stretch of peeling paint and cracked plaster that felt wider than it should have been. I counted steps, measured with my stride. There was room for another classroom. At the far end of the hall, behind a collapsed section of lockers, I found a broken wall. Someone, or something, had punched through it years ago. Jagged bricks framed a rough opening just wide enough to crawl through. Cold air drifted out of the hole. I shined my flashlight inside and saw desks, a classroom. No door, no doorway, just that broken wall. I hesitated. Every instinct told me not to go in, but curiosity won. I climbed through carefully, scraping my arm on brick, and dropped into the room. The air inside was noticeably colder, heavy in a way that pressed against my chest. The classroom was intact, too intact. Desks were arranged neatly. A teacher's desk sat at the front. The chalkboard was clean. No graffiti, no dust on the chairs, like the room had been sealed off before time could touch it. I turned back to the hole in the wall. It had changed again. The hole was now barely shoulder width. My pulse spiked. I dropped my backpack and squeezed through feet first, twisting my body, and slammed into solid wall. I pulled my flashlight closer. The broken bricks were gone. In their place was smooth painted concrete, same color as the rest of the room. No cracks, no opening, no sign there had ever been a way out. I pounded on the wall. My fists echoed dully, swallowed by the room. The sound felt wrong, like it wasn't traveling anywhere beyond those walls. That's when the chalkboard scraped. Slowly. Once. I turned toward the front of the classroom. A line was appearing on the chalkboard, thin and white, drawn from left to right. No hand, no movement, just the result forming in real time. Words followed. You found it. The footsteps above stopped. The silence afterward was unbearable. I backed toward the wall where the opening had been, my breath coming fast, fogging faintly in the cold.
I slammed my shoulder into it again and again. Nothing, not even dust. The chalk moved faster now. This room was never on the map. The overhead lights flickered. For a split second, I saw something reflected in the glass of the teacher's desk, rows of desks filled with dark shapes, all facing forward. When the lights died completely, I screamed. My voice sounded wrong, flattened, like the room absorbed it. I stumbled in the darkness, tripping over a desk that hadn't been there a moment before. The chalkboard scraped again, loud this time. Class is in session. My flashlight flickered once, twice, then went out. I don't remember how long I was in there. Time felt stretched, meaningless. I remember sitting on the floor, back against the wall, counting my breaths to keep from panicking. I remember hearing faint whispers, not words, just the sound of many people breathing in unison. Then, suddenly, light. I was lying in the hallway, half on top of broken lockers. Sunlight streamed through a shattered window nearby. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Missed calls, hours worth. I scrambled to my feet and ran, not stopping until I was outside. Later, I went back online and checked the updated demolition records. The final blueprints included a note I hadn't seen before. Sealed instructional space located between rooms 214 and 216. No accessible entry. Sometimes, late at night, I wake convinced I can hear chalk scraping softly behind me, like someone correcting a mistake that was never supposed to escape the room with no door.
The footsteps were light, fast, and careless, exactly the way children run when they think they're alone. The problem was, there was no upstairs anymore. We weren't supposed to be there. The elementary school had been condemned after part of the second floor collapsed during a storm years earlier. Everyone in town knew it was unstable. That warning, of course, was exactly why my friends wanted to explore it. There were 4 of us: me, Tyler, Josh, and Marin. It was just after midnight when we slipped through a gap in the construction fence, our flashlights already on, beams jittering with nervous energy. The building loomed low and wide, its windows dark, some boarded, others just empty holes. The front doors were sealed, but a side entrance had been pried open at some point. Inside, the air was cold and damp, smelling faintly of rot and old books. Every sound, our footsteps, our breathing, felt amplified. The first floor was mostly intact. Classrooms sat quiet and frozen in time. Tiny desks, crayon drawings still taped to corkboards. A calendar on the wall still said March, the year the school shut down. It felt wrong, like the place hadn't realized it was dead yet. At the end of the hall, the ceiling opened up into darkness. That was where the second floor had collapsed. Broken beams jutted down at odd angles, and chunks of concrete littered the floor. You could look straight up and see the night sky through twisted metal and shattered roofing. There was nothing above us, no floor, no rooms, no place for anyone to stand. Tyler shined his flashlight upward. "Told you," he said. "Totally gone." That's when we heard it. A single laugh, high-pitched, brief, childlike. We all froze. It came from above us. Before anyone could speak, the sound multiplied. Footsteps, several sets, light and fast, pounding across what should have been empty air. Laughter followed, echoing and overlapping, like a group of kids chasing each other down a hallway. Josh whispered, That's not possible." The running continued, clear as day. You could hear the rhythm of it, sneakers slapping tile, the sound changing direction as if the kids were turning corners. One laugh passed directly overhead, then another farther back, like they were looping the floor. Marin started backing away. "We need to go, now." As if responding to her, something heavy shifted above us. Dust rained down, sparkling in our flashlight beams. The footsteps stopped. For a few seconds, there was silence. Then,
came the sound of a bell. Not loud, distant, muffled, but unmistakable. The kind of bell that signals recess is over. The running started again, faster this time, more frantic. The laughter was gone. Now it sounded like they were late. Tyler swore under his breath and turned toward the exit. "I don't like this." We moved as a group, fast but careful, trying not to trip over debris. As we passed one classroom, I glanced inside and stopped. Tiny footprints covered the dusty floor. They weren't old. They were sharp and clean, cutting through the dust like they'd just been made. They ran in circles, overlapping, some stopping abruptly near the walls. One set of prints led straight out into the hallway. I followed them with my eyes. They pointed toward the collapsed section. Before I could say anything, we heard a new sound. Someone was crying. It was faint at first, a soft whimper, coming from above us, or what was left of above us. It didn't echo like the laughter had. It sounded close, personal. Marin covered her mouth. Josh kept whispering, "No, no, no," like if he said it enough times it wouldn't be real. The sobbing turned to sobbing. Then a small voice said, very clearly, "I can't find my class." That was it. We ran. Not carefully, not quietly. We sprinted down the hallway, our footsteps mixing with the sound of children running overhead again, matching our pace. The crying turned into laughter, wrong laughter, stretched and shrill. As we reached the exit, something slammed down behind us hard enough to shake the floor. Plaster fell from the ceiling. I didn't look back. We burst outside into the cold night air and didn't stop running until we were across the parking lot, bent over, gasping. The school was silent again. No lights, no movement, just a hollow building under the moon. None of us spoke for a long time. A week later, the city put up new fencing and signs. A full demolition was scheduled. Before it happened, someone uploaded drone footage of the interior to a local forum. In one clip, the camera hovered over the collapsed section. Painted on the exposed wall of what used to be the second-floor hallway were faded words, barely visible under grime. "Please walk in the halls." I still hear running sometimes, late at night when everything else is quiet. And every time I do, I remember the sound of kids playing where there was no floor to hold them.
If this story followed you into the dark, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to Noctyde channel, and turn on notifications because the next story might find you when you least expect it. Leave a comment below. Tell me what disturbed you the most. And remember, somewhere out there, another story is already waiting to be told. Until next time, stay afraid.